G'day GBA fans, my name is Bill and today we have a very special video. Earlier in the season we had coach interviews for all the new coaches, and due to some unfortunate circumstances, Cooper of the Utah Jasmine has had to retire from the GBA, mainly due to a full-time job. But if you wish to hear his whole thoughts on the topic, he has made a video and that's going to be on his channel right now. But since he has to drop, he has recommended a few people to take over his team for the rest of the season. And one of the person that he has suggested is the PPL's very own Necrostevo, so you can introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Necrostevo, and I will be the coach for the Utah Jasmine. In the Pokemon Premier League, I also coach the Eternal City Enders.
So yes, like he mentioned, he's a very good player. He's played in the PPL with his own team, and he also breeds his own mons, carrying on the tradition from Cooper. But he also holds one of the most buttery voices on the whole of the internet.
Butter is good.
So we're gonna have so we have a few questions that we're gonna ask you, and they're gonna be about you and how you play with Pokemon and generally what you do, so people can get to know you. Then we have a lightning round with just two options. You pick your favorite, and then we have a question directly from Cooper specifically for you. So we'll get right into that with, what was your first Pokemon experience?
That is actually a great question. As many people had when they were kids, if they made good grades, they would be able to go and pick out a game or a prize or a treat or something like that, candy. For me, I made good grades once, and I had recently seen the Pokemon commercial on TV, and I was like, oh, I really want to go see that. That looks cool. I saw a dragon on there. There was like a cool plant guy. Let's check it out. And so we were literally just in the post exchange on base where we were stationed, and I told my dad, hey, can I get this? And he was like, yeah, you have good grades, whatever. And at the time, I was only allowed to play video games 1 hour on each day of the weekend, so 2 hours a week. And I could only play after all my chores were done. But thus started me constantly getting in trouble because I always wanted to be playing Pokemon. I would sneak and play it. I would stay up late. I'd play it at school, which turned into me playing it at work and all sorts of things. And like my earliest memory is running out of every type of Pokeball I had against Zapdos. It had KO'd all of my Pokemon, and all I had left was my Master Ball, so I used my Master Ball on Zapdos. And hence Zapdos is always my favorite flying type too. But that's going to be my earliest, most main Pokemon experience there.
And you started with Generation 1?
Yes.
Alright. And which was it? Was it blue or red?
I started with red, only because there was no green in the States, unfortunately.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yes.
Well, the next question is, what is your first Pokemon experience that brought you into the realm of competitive play?
My first experience there was for people who were playing competitively in second gen. They used to hold tournaments at Toys R Us and Books A Million. And back then, I would, if once again, based on my grades and things like that, I would be allowed to go to play Pokemon cards and stuff at Books A Million. And so there was a big tournament at Books A Million, and the same day there was one at Toys R Us, and they were giving away Mew for the Generation 2 games. And so I didn't know anything about natures and EVs, but I knew if I rebred my Bulbasaur, there was a chance that the stats would be a little bit higher. So I kept rebreeding it until I got what I thought was a little bit better Bulbasaur, trained it all the way up to level 100. I had my whole team and I was ready, and ended up winning at that division. So not only did I get a Mew, but I got a bunch of extra swag from Toys R Us. And then that was my first immediate experience. And from that I learned, oh, if I just keep grinding it out, I might get a little bit of a better Pokemon, which might lead to me having an edge in battle. And that's when I actually started to research, okay, how do you breed for better Pokemon instead of just kind of randomly going for it over and over and over again. But actually having that real competitive experience where it's like, okay, no one here really knows how to breed, but maybe I can figure some of this out. That was my kind of crowning moment there.
And you sort of stuck with that mentality through you playing now, I suppose.
Oh yes. Even in the other generations when a lot of people were ginning, I really found it rewarding to breed my own Pokemon. And then at the time, a lot of times I wouldn't have max IV. I would really just focus on getting speed or the offensive stats to be maxed out. And then after that, because of course IVs were different back then anyway, but then after that, I would just kind of play around and see what the best thing I could get was. It kind of threw a huge wrench in my plans to have natures and stuff introduced, because it's like, oh god, now I have to breed for all this other stuff. But it's been fun.
So can you tell us a bit about yourself as a content creator and a competitive battler?
Yes. So when it comes to content, I actually started my channel when I was in law school. And at the time, a lot of my acquaintances and friends referred to me as Pokedex, because I always would know weird, quirky facts about Pokemon and how it pertains to the real world. And so when my channel first started out, I would always have little fun facts pop up underneath the Pokemon when they were battling, or just like interesting things to know about the real world and how it pertains to Pokemon, and different metaphors and allusions you can draw between them. And for me, it was really nice because also at the time I was substitute teaching and mentoring a lot, and a way to connect with kids that were watching Pokemon is to show them, oh, this has some real world application. It's not just a video game. There are things you can learn here. There's different types of concepts you can learn. And there are also lessons that can be learned in the game, such as, teamwork and those types of basic fuzzy feelings. When it comes to competitive battling, for me, it was a little bit of a chip on my own shoulder to know that most people in the competitive scene don't breed. And so it's kind of like, I just wanted to show that you can do just as well by playing with the tools you're given in the game. And again, I found that process really rewarding. So whenever I would host university events at the university I attended, or go to other events, whether it be at PAX or Dragon Con and things like that, being able to step right up to people who were using those alternative tools that are actually really convenient, was just like a little badge of pride for me. And that really started back at second gen. I dabbled in competitive in first gen, but I was really too young to really appreciate the different concepts. So second gen was where I really started with that. And I really didn't get super deep into it until fourth generation, when there was the physical special split. So I kind of go way back, but not nearly as deep as I get into it now.
So what are your personal thoughts on the new Generation 7 Pokemon and their place in competitive battling?
Oh man. So I adore the new Generation 7 Pokemon. The designs, the attention to detail, not only in the context biologically and introducing new species into different atmospheres and things like that, they did a great job. When it comes to competitive battling, I did think they approached it a little differently. Like, I'm sure a lot of people will agree that on the whole, Generation 7 is pretty slow and generally bulky, which is a little bit outside. Normally there's a power creep mentality, so it's nice to see that they're shaking things up and that they are aware of how, if they're going to have these competitive circles like VGC, or I'm sure that they're aware of the singles competitive circuit too, how introducing new Pokemon into that atmosphere, or that ecosphere, is viewed, and how that's taken, because it's very delicate. It's difficult to make games like Pokemon and to keep them going, let alone over 20 plus years. So for me at least, it's just more for me to get excited over. For a lot of people, they're a little bit meh on some of it, but I'm the true concept of a fanboy when it comes to Pokemon, because I'm always just excited to see what new things are going to be coming out.
So we have one more long question, and that is, do you feel like you have a certain strategy when you're playing? Like, do you play stall, hyper offense, bulky offense, or what do you sort of like to use?
Ooh, that's a tough question too. This is the one I was thinking about the most since I was reading it. On the whole, I generally am going to come down to balanced offense. I used to play chess a lot, even alongside Pokemon. And the way that I just normally like to play a battle and take everyone at face value, even if I know that they're inexperienced, I want to see how they play. And the best way to get a feel for someone is with a balanced play style. That way you have your core, you have your offense, and then you also have utility. You kind of have three pieces of a puzzle instead of focusing primarily on stalling or primarily on just overwhelming with hyper offense. For me, battling is much more of a personal experience, and I can probably tell a lot more through battling someone than I can having a conversation with them, just because you get to see a peek into the way that they think about things. Even more so for people that you know nothing about. Just battle them or play a game of chess with them, and it's just like, wow, so that's what you really think about things, huh? But I do use hyper offense a good bit just because it's really fun. But I will say I do not like playing stall. For me, I don't know if it's a patience thing. It might not be a patience thing because obviously I breed, so I guess I have patience for that. But with stall, you don't have to necessarily, for me at least, I don't play that the same way that I would the other playstyles, of course. And so for me, it's not as enjoyable to play in stall. So more on the offensive balance side for me overall.
Well, this sort of comes into that question. It's just a sort of side question. Since you didn't get to draft the team that you're going to be using, how do you sort of feel about it, since it may or may not be your style?
Man, this looks like a team I could have drafted outside of things like Manaphy. Until recently, at least, I haven't had the ability to ensure that my legendary Pokemon were completely competitively viable, and that's just because you're kind of rolling the dice there on the IVs. But being able to take all those level 100 legendaries I've saved for all the years and hyper train them, now I can really get a lot of my options opened up. I think Cooper did a really good job of building an unpredictable team, because looking at a lot of the matchups that I have for the future, almost all the members are viable against most of the opponent's Pokemon. And he has a little bit of everything mixed in there. And that's definitely how I like to draft. It is not really my style to draft. His team is a little bit slower overall. And so I generally like to build on the front end of speed more so than the back end. But I think he made up for that pretty well with the bulk that's there with this team and the utility options as well. It makes it so the opponent can't just run through the whole team with one thing with a choice band. You really have to kind of pick your points around Cooper's team and understand, okay, if I'm bringing this, there's a good chance that if I don't account for one other thing here and it shows up, it's going to run through my team. Whether that be having Hippowdon have the weather options and chipping away at the more slow and bulky teams that it might face, or Reuniclus putting up a Trick Room, and then now we have something in the back a little bit more powerful. So I really like it. It seems very balanced. And I know I get 3 free agency picks, but off the cuff, I don't think there are too many adjustments I would make to the team. I think he did a good job.
Well, it's fantastic that you enjoy or like his team. I'm sure it'll make it a lot easier for you to build with it in the upcoming games. But moving on, we have the lightning round. So I'm going to give you 2 options, and you just need to, as quick as you can, give me the option that you prefer. So we'll start with Sun and Moon or XY.
Sun and Moon.
Attack or special attack?
Attack.
Defense or special defense?
Special defense.
Speed or Trick Room?
Speed.
Showdown or Cartridge?
Cartridge.
Gyms or Trials?
Gyms.
Thunderwave, Toxic or Will-O-Wisp?
Will-O-Wisp.
Electric, Misty, Psychic or Grassy terrain?
Grassy.
And finally, GG or Rage Quit?
GG.
And now the last question I have is especially from Cooper, so I'm sure you'll be very happy to hear your answer, and it is, which game in the Pokemon series have you bred the most eggs on?
Oh, interesting. Overall, it's going to be at this point, it's probably going to be Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, but that's just because of the new breeding mechanics, and literally being able to physically move faster in the games. On top of that, when they added in Flame Body, and cutting the egg steps in half for each of the eggs, that was really nice. But just then, Omega Ruby being able to hold in one direction and just go in a circle, and literally being able to give my girlfriend the DS while I drove and go, literally all you have to do is hold in this direction, and if you see a Pokemon with this nature, and go talk to the Ivy guy if it's like this, that's what I need. And so that made that whole process a lot easier, and I could multitask while I was hatching eggs. Like, I know when I finished Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, it was well over 5,000, 6,000 eggs. So it's cool that they keep track of those metrics in the game for you.
It's a crazy amount of eggs. But with that does wrap up the interview portion of this video. A few things that we want you, the fans, to check out. Of course, please go check out Necrostevo. His Twitter and YouTube will be linked in the description. As you can probably tell from this interview, he's a fantastic guy, and he will be, of course, playing the rest of the games for the Utah Jasmine this season, so please check that out. As well, if you want to give a thank you to Coop, there is going to be a thank you sheet in the GBA Discord, so go there, click on the sheet, and you can send him a thank you message for all the great moments you've had with him in the GBA, or tell him your favourite set that he brought. Other than that, I'm out of questions. Anything else you want to say?
Nope, I'm just going to keep things entertaining, and of course, I'll be breeding everything, so thanks everyone for their support so far. I've had several people message me and tell me good luck, and it's amazing to see support, and they haven't even seen me play yet, so I really appreciate it, guys.
And thank you, of course, for coming on. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Bill, and adios.